Ben McKee and Patrick Brown, go Vols 24/7 here inside of the Horseshoe with our no-huddle following Tennessee's 42-17 loss to Ohio State in the college football playoffs. The first round of the college football playoffs. Tennessee's season comes to an end in frustrating fashion. They finished 10-3, and they were able to steal some momentum going into halftime, and they got the ball to start the second half with a chance to cut it to a one-score game. But outside of the end of the second quarter, not much went right for Tennessee tonight.
Yeah, as I watched the first quarter play out, I was reminded of a couple of the other playoff games with teams on the road, right? Indiana was driving through a pick, right, early in that game, intercepted inside the 5. Next play, Notre Dame goes 98 yards. SMU had a fourth down call. Looked like it was going to be an easy conversion. Should have had a touchdown. They don't convert it. They get blown out. That face mask penalty on Bryson Easton. Momentum's a funny thing in this game. We just never know. We'll never know what would have happened if Tennessee gets off the field there, because 2 plays later, Ohio State's up 7-0. 10 plays later, after 3 and out and a quick drive, it's 14-0, and Tennessee just never really recovered. Like you said, Ben, they created some momentum going into halftime with a couple of drives, a couple of stops on defense, but it proved fleeting because second half they got 1 first down and then stalled. Ohio State went down and scored, and then you're just kind of playing catch up from there. And Ohio State was, they played awesome tonight. They played a really good game, and Tennessee played a really bad game, and that's how you get 42-17 on the scoreboard.
Yeah, made you wonder how in the world this team lost to Michigan inside of this stadium. We'll start on the offensive side of the football. Just not enough protection, not able to establish the run, not enough playmakers out at receiver making plays. Nico's legs was the best part of the game for Tennessee, and the injuries piled up as well. And Dylan Sampson's hamstring that kind of started to bother him at Vanderbilt, that was a much worse situation than I think we all realized.
Yeah, and we'll start with Dylan. He said earlier in the week this is the best he's ever felt. And I asked Josh Heupel after the game, was this something that flared up recently, to flare up in the game? He said it was an issue at Vanderbilt that they tried to nurse through the first 2 weeks of the time off, and they tried to sort of build him up. They knew they would have him for this game. They didn't think that he'd be able to have a full workload that maybe he normally had. But they probably thought they'd have him more for, he couldn't have played more than 5 or 6 snaps. I think he only had 3 touches.
He came out here and retweaked it.
Yeah, and that was the thing, is Heupel said it was a retweak. So you take him out, and this offense gets a lot less scary to defend. He's the SEC Offensive Player, saw these records for a reason. And it just felt like it was Nico against everyone because he was not getting a lot of help. Josh Heupel pointed that out after the game. And he said this before, but quarterbacks, it's about the other 10 guys, and the other 10 guys weren't good enough tonight and haven't been good enough when Tennessee has played teams like Ohio State, like Georgia. The offensive line had some protection issues, and then the receivers, they haven't had explosive guys in these 2 games against really talented secondaries. And if we're looking at the big picture, it's safe to say they really just haven't really adequately replaced Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman, who were dudes, and they just haven't had. They've had solid players, but they haven't had that one guy. They haven't had that Jeremiah Smith, and they haven't had a guy that could just take it to the house anytime he got the ball. Dante Thornton did a little bit of that this season, maybe replicated some of Hyatt, but
another guy that was banged up tonight.
Right, and so it just felt like with all the guys that were out and with how they were playing and who they were playing, it just felt like it was Nico against everyone, and he did what he could, but clearly wasn't enough.
Defensively, not able to generate a push on the line of scrimmage.
No.
Not able to generate pressure. Missed tackles at all 3 levels. Busts in the secondary. Your corners were okay tonight. There are some perfect throws that just even the best coverage is not going to beat, quite frankly. Just a poor night defensively. And Josh Heupel said after the game, Wes asked him a question about the line of scrimmage, about watching Ohio State on tape. And Josh was talking about both lines of scrimmage, but it feeds into the defensive line talk that he was surprised that they were not able to generate more of a push than they did.
Yeah, there was talk coming in this game about, Ohio State's got 2 starters down on the offensive line. They're piecing it together, and, could they handle Tennessee's defensive line? And Tennessee's defensive line was not really a factor. Big picture for the defense in this game, if they weren't getting out-schemed, Ohio State did a great job of scheming guys open. They had a game plan. We're going to get our receivers involved. These are our best players. And if those guys weren't being schemed open, they were making plays on their own one-on-one. You look at some of the early plays in the game. Ricky Gibson's in position a little bit on Jeremiah Smith. He just gets beat. There's no X's and O's.
And that I know it's frustrating
That
from the
dude's
Tennessee
good,
side.
first of all.
He's not good. He's a freak.
He's literally Julio Jones
Yes.
reincarnated is what he is. So,
Yes, he is.
if it wasn't individual plays, players making plays, it was guys being schemed wide open. And a lot of times Ohio State was drawing up slow, longer developing pass routes into zone coverages. And Will Howard had all night to throw it because there was no pass rush. It's a little bit like Georgia. I mean, Will Howard had one 300-yard game this season. Well, he had one tonight. And it was 24-29, never really looked like he was under duress. And the defensive line just didn't show up, and as we saw at Georgia, if the defensive line is not showing up and wreaking havoc on the game, you can get at this Tennessee defense, and they gave up season highs in yards and points.
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing before we get out of here, big picture. This is a big off season. Obviously, this is likely a money year for Nico, and you've got to surround him with great pieces, and there's just a lot of positions that. There's a lot of things going well for this program right now. A lot of positions are healthy and are good, but in order to take the next step and make some noise in the playoffs, to truly compete with Georgia, Ohio State on a year-to-year basis, it feels like this program needs to take the next step in the personnel department. And there's a million different leaves that fall off of that tree, but
that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, it's a whole other series of podcasts. But it's a big offseason from a personnel standpoint on both sides of the football.
Yeah, I mean, this program came so far so quickly under Josh Heupel. This is sort of the third year in a row where they've been in. They're in the playoff this year. They were in the mix for it 2 years ago. They were kind of on the edge of it last season before they got blown out twice in November. They've come to this point. Now it's about what do you got to do to get past this point. You're good enough to get here, but tonight will show you that you are clearly not good enough to go past this point. So what do you have to do personnel-wise, coaching staff-wise? Do you need to look at your schemes? And Josh Heupel alluded to this after the game. He said this is, when you get back in January, you restart. It's a whole new team. It's a new year. You restart that process. So, and the process of getting ready for next year will start sooner because the portal closes in 6 days. So this will be some teams have had hectic offseason starts to the offseason. Tennessee will be in that window now, I guess, when players are going to decide what they're going to do. And in this day and age, literally probably everyone on your roster is, you got to probably try to not fight to keep them, but, we get questioned who could go in the portal. Anybody could go in the portal. That's just the nature of college football.
And not
these
at
days.
Tennessee, at every school in America.
And Tennessee has done a good job of keeping the players they want to keep under this staff, but they need to determine who they're keeping, who, NIL, all those discussions come into play. I mean, I wonder tonight if you saw what they were without Sampson, does your NIL pitch to him go up because you saw how valuable he is? He's obviously got the NFL situation out there. Certainly they need help at right tackle based on tonight. David Sanders was watching on the sideline among the early other enrollees too. So those are all, that's the next phase for Tennessee. But the big question, the big picture, as you touched on, Ben, is they're good enough to get here. Now they've got to figure out what's the little bit. And we've seen this program come so far, but they're discovering now over the past 3 seasons that last little bit is often the hardest to get to. You say you want to compete for championships. Well, to compete for championships, you have to find ways to dig out those last little bit. And maybe they're a little bit further away based on tonight than maybe they thought.
Certainly against this level of brand. Ohio State and Georgia are a notch up than even other teams in the playoffs like Tennessee. So to catch them, Tennessee's got to find a way to be more productive.
And you've got to play better.
Ways.
They played bad tonight. That's the other thing.
They played bad because of the personnel on the other side.
True, but there were guys that have played well all season.
You're right.
Made mistakes and weren't making plays tonight. So
absolutely, we'll have coverage of it all up at GoVols247.com. If my lips can unfreeze and I can speak and get us out of here, make sure you check out the site at GoVols247.com right now. The whole crew is here in Columbus, and we'll have plenty of coverage for you throughout the rest of the morning and into Sunday as we get on back to Knoxville.
Thank you for following all season.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for following all season, and before we know it, it'll be spring practice time. So thanks to you all. And
it'll be baseball season first, though.
Basketball season first. Also, great turnout from the fans tonight. That was incredible.
Yes.
Absolutely incredible. And
Josh Heupel did acknowledge that.
All the players did.
They're all, hey, we loved it, but we're also disappointed that we played like crap in front of them.
You could tell that they felt bad for the showing in front of them, but kudos to Tennessee fans for showing up in a way that I don't think we've really ever seen before. But again, we'll have plenty of coverage of it all at GoVols247.com. He's Patrick Brown. I've been McKee.